Hey, hi, DionTheCreative here, and today we're here with the Honorable Premier, David Burt.
Greetings.
Welcome to the Bermuda National Gallery and the Richard Saunders exhibit. So, as far as creativity, how much creativity would you say the Premier has?
In visual arts, I would say very little.
So, let's get right into the questions. Okay, so my first one for you is talking about how you want to grow the working population.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bermuda's no doubt a beautiful place, right? If wanting to grow the working population, do you have any plans to target, let's say, creatives or artists who would be naturally inspired by it?
So here's what I'll say. When we talk about the working population, I think that the easiest way to talk about that is we're just basically talking about increase the number of jobs in our economy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that jobs provide opportunities in all aspects. I think where matters that are related to creatives and others, we've seen programs that have come out from the government, additional funding. But I think what is important is that there's more persons that are here working to support those activities, more persons who are willing, to either purchase art, to do those type of things which are produced by creators. And I think that's the important byproduct. So people always frame this as a working population, where we get these people from. You don't increase the working population without increase the number of jobs. And so that's the key point. It's about creating jobs, increase the number of jobs, increase the number of tourists and those things who can actually take advantage of the amazing creative community that we have here in Bermuda.
Okay, cool. So there's a whole section of the budget about this new Morgan Point reclamation, revitalization, but there is a part of the island that could also use something similar to that in God's country. I know you're a Somerset fan, but St. George's, right? Is there any plans to help God's country do something?
We were talking about how difficult it was in Parliament. I'm sure it's difficult watching your team.
Just a little bit.
We'll save that.
Yeah.
Morgan's Point is a challenging one, and Morgan's Point is a challenging one just because the government basically has a significant amount of money that it is seeking to recover. And it's not government's money. I refer to things as taxpayers' money because all of us collectively are responsible for that. And so so far as Morgan's Point, I think that we'll be able to share more of the plans as we go forward. But speaking about St. George's, I think there are good things happening in St. George's. In 2018 or 19, we made sure that we inserted an additional capital provision into the budget for St. George's. I know that they are going through a development and planning process right now. I think they put out a draft plan just recently that was supported by the government in concert with Hotelco. I think if you're talking about a new hotel that is built there, in addition to the St. George's Club, which is reopened, in addition to new businesses that are planning to reopen there, in addition to the marina that is just now being completed, is set for completion at the end of this year, and the other items which you're doing, I think there's certainly progress that is to be made there and will be continued to be made in St. George's. And I think that for where we talk about the government increasing its capital spending, some of those things will go to benefit St. George's in addition to the country as a whole. One of the places where St. George's was first is St. George's was the first to get the newly completed water and sewage system. And I know that person will be hearing from the Minister of Public Works speaking about the fact that we are building out infrastructure for the next 100 years. So we're putting water lines throughout the country, we're putting sewage lines throughout the country to ensure that we can build those things up. But the place where that started was in the East End, as you say, God's country.
Yes, trust me,
But I accept the perspective, and I think that there's a balance here, because the one thing that is important, and the perspective which you take from government, is we want the government to assist, but we want to make sure that we enable private sector investment to happen. The only reason that we're dealing with Morgan's Point, which was private sector, is because there was a massive guarantee that we took over and we had to deal with it. If on a regular basis, the government would not want to be involved with something like Morgan's Point. That's why we've created a separate company. But with St. George's, we continue to work to attract investment, continue to make sure that we can modernize the way that the corporation works. And I think that we'll begin to see progress because we were determined to get the marina up and running. We've supported the projects inside of the East End. There's more works that are going in so far as fort restoration and others. And as it is a World Heritage Site, it is certainly a space where we can see more and more. So yes, there will be more support, and hopefully we'll be able to give more financial support in future years.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, I just, now that I live down there, I'm like always in the community. So people always asking. So when they saw the questions, it was like, oh, this. And yeah,
it's a great question, and I want to make sure that more happens. It's an easy political fodder point to say that St. George's, is isolated or forgotten about. And I think that as you've seen over the last few years, we're trying to make sure that we can promote more development. And I think you'll see more things that are coming out that from not only the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation, but also the Minister of Public Works.
Okay, so you spoke about modernizing things. Let's talk about the banking system. So how much do I have to mince my words here?
Do not mince them at all.
Okay, perfect.
Because I don't mince mine. It gets me in trouble, but I don't mince mine.
See, this is why we'll get along. So in 2023, there's no reason why the most expensive place to live in the world, I can't use ApplePay. Like what plans are there to try to maybe not get to that point, but get to some form of, I can now walk around and not have to carry my wallet. I can now just have everything on my phone.
So that's a complex issue.
Yeah, I think it would be.
But I'm happy to explain it because it's nothing that is the government that prevents that. What we have to remember is that part of the reason why we are an expensive jurisdiction is due to our size.
Yeah.
And that is a often not understood byproduct of increasing the working population. A larger working population can actually lead to reduced costs because the fixed costs that are required for either a power company or telephone company or other things be spread amongst more customers. And in a regulated environment, that leads to lower costs. So that's an important byproduct that we really don't speak about, and that's why we consider it an imperative. But the challenge with Bermuda being such a small market is that companies like Apple or others are not going to make money off of Bermuda. The costs of providing that service, because they have to provide that service specifically to Bermuda, would be more cost prohibitive and would not make money for them. So they prefer to focus on large markets like, established markets in Europe, Asia, and other places. And so that's the reason why the strategy of which the government has adopted in approaching digital asset companies and others is to say, here is Bermuda, a small country, very, very technologically adept. We're the only country in the world that has the ability to run fiber directly to every single home. We have highest internet penetration rates, well-educated society. This is a place where you can demonstrate your services here so you can scale them up. Use us as a place where you can test, maybe not ApplePay, but the thing to come after ApplePay and others. And that strategy is working. And so we would have seen the recent things where Block and Cash App have decided that they would put their things here. There's others that are going through that process. And we are going to soon be making sure that those companies can also demonstrate those products and use those products here locally. That's the plan. There is no reason. I always hear people talk about, why isn't we're here? Why is the government blocking it? It's not the government. It is the fact that our market is so small. And so with our market being that size, we have to revise our approach on how do we make sure that the best new technologies get to come here. And so locals can use that.
So a question that I got asked to ask with the approach to fintech and just the whole digital asset space, do you see the government and the BMA partnering to become the regulator, like to be an example for other jurisdictions to follow?
Well, we actually are. And that was a conversation that I just had. I was meeting with the BMA just before I came here and talking about making sure, because we are regarded as one of the best, if not the best, digital asset regulator on the planet. And other countries already look to us, reference the work of which we've been doing here in showing how to regulate this industry. So yes, we are going to continue to share that knowledge, whether that's in linkages with the United States, United Kingdom, and Europe, which are established markets, or whether those in other places, such as the United Arab Emirates, and other places which are looking to certainly promote themselves in the digital asset space. That collaboration is continuing because the industry itself will not be successful if there's different regulatory standards around, and that causes challenges for companies as they look to operate.
Now to shift gears just a little bit to tourism. So I wouldn't say we're through the pandemic yet, but we're in the back end of it, right?
Absolutely.
So we're now getting close to those 2019 marks of tourism. I recently took a trip down to the Bahamas and kind of get an idea of how they do things. So compared to other jurisdictions that we get compared to all the time, like Bahamas, Aruba, like all those sort of places in the Caribbean, how do you think we're faring?
So those would not be the correct comparisons to compare Bermuda. And from that aspect, those are areas that have mass tourism markets, that have far lower costs of operation and other things that Bermuda does not have. And, I don't want to take so much time to go into the history of tourism. But when I used to canvas, I would say that, Bermuda and Hawaii were the only game in town after World War II because we had complete infrastructures. And, other countries can use the power on and other things. Now, of course, when you got the 80s and 90s, other countries watched what we did and did it better than us. And we took our eye off the ball because we were making so much money from international business. Tourism did not, wasn't as important at that time. Tourism is going to be a major part of growth for those jobs that we spoke about earlier in the interview. Because when we talk about the reopening of the Fairmont Southampton, when we talk about the work that's taking place at Ariel Sands, when we talk about the completion that is taking place up at the St. George's Club, in the final phase, when we talk about the renovation works that are taking place at Cambridge Beaches, the finalization of Bermuda Beach. So there's lots of job opportunities there. Our challenge from a tourism perspective, of course, is hotel bed capacity. That is our issue. That is why we've been so forceful in making sure that we extend concessions, which is something that, people, oh my goodness, we're giving this away. The fact is that there is more money that is made by taxpayers by operating hotels than was made by taxpayers with operating hotels with taxes, and certainly more money than made with no hotels at all. And when we look at those competitor jurisdictions, some of whom you mentioned, their concessions are far more generous than ours because they want to attract that investment. It is expensive to build a Bermuda. It is expensive to operate in Bermuda. And if we do not make it so it is financially viable, then that will cause a problem in the long term. So I would say that our recovery is happening, but we will not get there until our largest hotel property comes back online. And also, when that comes back online, supplemented with Bermuda Beach, St. Regis, St. George's Club, and all the rest, we will certainly be in a better stead. And there are other hotels that are looking to expand their current operations. And we need to make sure that we make it as easy for them to do so, because that creates jobs, jobs create tourists create tax revenue, and are able to support creators.
Right, so that's perfect lead into my next one. So once the tourists get here, just from when I used to work down at Tobacco Bay on the beach, I found that you had repeat people coming year after year because of the simple fact of the real gem of Bermuda isn't our beaches. It's not our fish sandwiches and all that. It's the people. So is there any sort of plan from a government point to help promote that outside of what the BTA is doing? Because they're doing amazing things. But is there any sort of incentive that the government's looked at in the past to be like, oh, let's help these local creatives put Bermuda on a bigger stage, especially with social media the way it is?
So I'll put it this way. I think that we can do a far better job in utilizing creatives in lots of areas and spaces. One of the things, my family visited one of the forts, I think was Fort Scour, and seeing all the like signs and old signs, all the rest. And it's kind of like, we have a wonderful creative community here. We can actually create something where people can come in with augmented reality, different things, look and do something better. And I think that that's the direction which we have to go when it comes to tourism product development. No one wants to go look at an old fort and read an old sign or something. They want something that is a more immersive experience, something that is better, and things they can attract. We can take out their phone and do things from that perspective. On the other side, when you talked about tourism marketing, you did say outside the BTA, but I think the BTA has done a very good job in their latest marketing in capturing that. And the Bermuda Tourism Authority is the responsible party for the marketing, and they also do some product development efforts. And so the government will continue to support those efforts. But I'm welcome for any suggestions that you think that we can do more so that creators can be more involved. I would certainly like to advance that project. There are things that we speak about. The challenge with government is that there's 100 things you want to do. And unfortunately, sometimes you can only do 20 and, those things. But I think that's something that if the creative community were to come together, I think that is certainly a space, because if we look at how to enhance the experience in some of our natural places, which can also attract more persons there, we can attract more, not just tourists, but businesses and other persons who are able to do their wares. I think that might help in a broader level.
Yeah, like a perfect example is, I'm not sure if you got the chance to go, I know Minister Owen Darrell, he went up there, and there was an exhibit done by Meredith Andrews, and I had the pleasure of helping her with it. And there was the actual framed photo, but I also went and recorded like members in the photo, like giving their own their own experience of growing up in the homes there, because that was the base of it. And you could go scan the photo, and now you can hear this person talking about it as you're looking at the photo. So things like that, it's
We
definitely
certainly
a way
have
to
to do
use.
more of, and I think
Yeah.
there's a way that we can, and certainly I think from the Ministry of Tourism and the BTA, they have a budget for product development, and I think that's certainly a worthwhile aim. It's not something that we've been able to execute,
Yeah.
but I think it can help because we do have content creators that can enhance our native and sometimes boring and stale tourism product.
Yeah, yeah. So you have to get me into the room with the Minister of Tourism then.
No problem.
Yeah.
We can do
Hold
that.
you to it?
No problem.
Okay, cool. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Premier. I really appreciate you taking your time to come out, check the exhibit, have a little chat with me. It's much appreciated.
Well, no, thank you for your time and thank you for your questions. And I look forward to, as I said, continue work in this space.
Yeah.
The beauty of Bermuda is that we are a vibrant democracy. I know that sometimes people do not feel as though they're listened to, and that's not on an intentional basis. That's just because, as I said, the government has a lot of work to do.
Yep.
But the idea is they continue to be filtered so we can advance some of these things. But I certainly think there's a lot of work that we could do in the creative space and look forward to participating.
Yeah, thank you.